Hey everyone, I'm Army Gaming. Welcome back to my channel and welcome to Monster Analysis. Up for analysis today is Krugbo. When Krugbo bites an enemy, his teeth infect the target, leaving it disoriented and possessed. In case you're looking at him and wondering, the answer is yes. That is true for each and every one of his mouths. So this is Krugbo, one of the newest monsters from the Eldritch Abomination maze. A really powerful monster, let me just tell you guys right off the bat. And anyhow, as of the time recording this video, there's a total of 38 Dark Legendary monsters, so there's a lot of competition in the Dark elements. So for me to say this monster is one of the better ones, you can just tell he's going to be quite good. Starting things off strong, his power is 3,575, which is the highest power stat for all the Dark monsters. It's actually tied with Balthasar. His life of 29,556 actually puts him in 11th place, tied with monsters like Count Vlad and Akhenaten. However, the life stat itself, 29,556, this is actually the 7th highest stat for Dark Legendary monsters. And as for his speed, he has a speed of 3,421, which actually puts him in 20th place, tied with monsters like Nox the Condemned, Little Red Fairy Cat, Master Skio, MMO Monster, and lastly Dr. Hazard. Now, even though he's in 20th place, you should know this is a pretty high speed. Actually, the speed stat itself, the number 3421, this is the 8th highest speed stat in the Dark element. It just so happens that there are so many fast monsters. I mean, come on, there's 38 legendary dark monsters. There's so many that are fast, so many that have the base speed stat of 3465, so many with 3454, so that's why he's really low. But again, the speed stat itself, it's a pretty good speed stat. And so all of his stats are way above average, considering there's 38 legendary monsters, power being the highest, life being tied for 11th place, speed being tied for 20th place. It's still way above average when you compare him to all the other dark legendary monsters. And as for his trait, we have Abomination, immunity to possession, nightmares, and bleed. It's a really good trait, although for this monster it would have been amazing if he was immune to freeze or immune to stun, because you're going to see he has a skill that essentially makes him immune to possession already, and also immune to stamina leak, or I should say stamina drain. He's immune to stamina drain essentially, so this monster is amazing. I'm letting you guys know that right now. Moving on over to his ultimate attack, Teeth Storm, deals massive dark damage to all enemies, may give nightmares, and bleed to all targets. His ultimate attack deals 75 dark base damage to the enemy monsters. It also applies Nightmare and Bleed, which together will reduce the enemy's HP by 15% for the next 3 turns. And it also reduces damage output, bleeding specifically by 20%, and Nightmares on that initial turn, it reduces the enemy's stamina by 10%. And so currently the only monsters immune to bleeding are monsters with the Abomination trait, and as for monsters immune to Nightmares, there's quite a bit of them, but honestly Nightmares isn't something to really worry about. So this ultimate attack is pretty powerful. It's especially going to be super powerful against earth monsters who tend to be tanky, because you have that elemental advantage over them, plus you're going to apply DOTs. So even if they're tanky, that doesn't matter. That's 15% of their life for the next 3 turns. And so even though I would have preferred if it was special based as opposed to dark based, because if it's ever a dark war when you're going to use this monster, this ultimate attack will essentially deal like 37.5 damage, in which case it won't be powerful at all. Overall though, I still really like the attack. And so anyways, on we move to skills group 1, and we have Eldritch Fascination, deals moderate dark damage, may possess target, requires cooldown. In his skills group 1, he actually has a skill that deals 35 dark base damage, costs 28 stamina with a 2-turn cooldown, but it's a 1-turn possession, and it's a 100% chance to possess. So I just find it fascinating, Eldritch Fascination, I find it fascinating that he has a possession skill guaranteed in skills group 1. Now I'm going to go ahead and say that most people aren't even going to consider running the skill, and to an extent I do agree with you because he actually has a 2-turn possession skill later on, but the drawback to the 2-turn possession is that it deals no damage, whereas this actually deals 35 damage. And even though 35 may not seem like a lot, keep in mind his base power is 3575, the highest power for dark monsters, and he's an attacker, so you're going to give him strength runes. So in which case, that initial 35 damage combined with possessing the enemy's monster, that might be enough to kill himself or to attack his teammates, and then he's severely wounded. Then you can just finish him off with an AoE. So there are some benefits to running this skill as opposed to the 2-turn possession, because again, the 2-turn possession, it deals no initial damage. So sure, you have the enemy monster in your team for 2 turns, but unfortunately you weren't able to severely damage it on that first attack. So it's going to be up to you. Again, most people, myself included, I think we're going to go against running this skill, but I did want to mention it for those of you that wanted to consider it. And so with that out of the way, moving on over to skills group 2, Sanity Check, deals moderate special damage to all enemies, may give nightmares to all targets, requires cooldown. Here we have an AoE that deals 30 special base damage to all of the enemy monsters, costs 35 stamina with a 3-turn cooldown, and it applies nightmares. Now the cool thing about this thing is that it is a 30 damage AoE special based, so you don't have to worry about dealing less damage against dark monsters. And really that's all he has going for him. As far as for it being AoE nightmares, I guess that can come in handy. It's very minimal, but you never know when it actually does help you out, eliminates the enemy monster. Maybe the enemy monster will skip their turn because of nightmares. It's only 5%. So from all the times I've played, I've rarely had an enemy die from nightmares. That initial 10% stamina drain, that's like 14 stamina. Again, you never know when that comes in handy, and they just lose that stamina, they can't do an attack. So overall sanity check, you may want to consider running this skill. He has another AoE, in which case you can do them back to back and potentially eliminate all the enemy monsters. It's hard to say for sure. Let's talk about the other skills. Unstoppable Ritual deals very heavy dark damage, gives immunity to freeze to attack, requires cooldown. Nice, here we have an attack that deals 60 dark based damage to a single enemy monster. It costs 31 stamina with a 3-turn cooldown, and you give yourself immunity to freeze for the next 2 turns. Now this can come in handy in a number of situations, specifically obviously against water monsters, also against dark monsters, specifically against Krampus. Let's say you find yourself in a war involving water monsters, or heck even Krampus, and you're able to immobilize the water monster on the first turn, or immobilize that Krampus on the first turn. And let's say you can't immobilize him on the second turn. Well, if after you immobilize them on that first turn, you use Unstoppable Ritual to maybe one-hit the enemy attacker is now gone. They have another monster, but so do you. But let's just say somehow, someway, the enemy water monster or the enemy Krampus, they get a turn in, and the enemy water monster did like an AoE freeze, or enemy Krampus did freezing shadows, tries to freeze you, did the single freeze skill against you. Guess what? You're immune to freeze and you're free to attack the next turn. So this skill can be quite powerful, and that goes back to what I said earlier. I really wish this monster would like immune to stun instead of immune to possession. Like, he already has this immune to freeze skill, but even if he was inherently immune to freeze, I think he could have been better. And the reason that is because of the next skill, Eldritch Stamina. Gains 100% of stamina and an extra turn, requires cooldown. Here we have a self skill. Self skill means you're immune to possession, every sort of possession, except a 2-turn possession. So whether you're corrupted, whether you're hacked, it doesn't matter, you just use that self skill and that possession is gone. What's even cooler about this skill is that you recover all of your stamina, so it's way better than recharging as a 4-turn cooldown, but you also get an immediate extra turn, which means no matter what, you're guaranteed an attack. Assuming you still have an attack you can use, assuming the cooldowns aren't all activated, you always have an attack, because you're back to full stamina. You can always hit the enemy team really hard. If you've ever faced a General Thetis and she does her team Stamina Devour, it doesn't matter for Krugbo, because he can do Eldritch Stamina, recover all of his stamina points, get an extra turn, and attack. That's how powerful this monster is. We have yet another monster that can counter General Thetis, and the cool thing about this, just think about it. I haven't showed you another of his attacks, but he has a 70 damage skill. If you're ever facing General Thetis and her 2 teammates versus your team, let's say General Thetis goes first and immobilizes all of your team, right? Drains 100% of stamina. For your immobilizer, it has to skip its turn, it has to recharge. For Krugbo, he can do Eldritch Stamina, get all of his stamina back, and then what does he do? Well, he has a few options. He can single possess the enemy attacker, have the attacker attack its own team, or you can do the attack I'm talking about, the 70 damage skill, and potentially one-hit the enemy attacker. The attacker is dead, the main threat is dead, then it goes back to your monster who has to recharge, the enemy monster will do something, it goes back to the enemy Thetis, guess what? She has no stamina, she's gonna have to recharge too. Unless she gets her ultimate, but even if she does get her ultimate, it's probably not that strong considering she's running off speedruns. Then it goes to your deny monster, and then it's like an easy win from there. And so it goes without saying, this is definitely a must-have skill. And with that said, moving on to skills group 3, the 3 I was talking about, Outer Impact, deals insane special damage, requires cooldown. 70 damage, 28 stamina, 3-turn cooldown. I know the cooldown is high, I know most of the cooldowns on this monster are high, but 70 damage combined with the power, combined with strength rune, this is guaranteed to one-hit most enemy monsters that aren't running life runes. And so once again, it goes without saying, you should definitely run this skill. Next up, we have Great Sanity Check, deals moderate dark damage so enemies may give nightmares to all targets, requires cooldown. So this is similar to the previous skill from skills group 2, except this time you deal 45 dark based damage, so 15 more damage, it costs 37 stamina with a 3-turn cooldown, it's also an AoE nightmares, so it's a trade-off, 15 more damage, but it's dark based as opposed to special based, so against a dark monster, this will only deal 22.5. So you have to decide, is it worth using the special based attack or the dark based attack, or if you want to, you could even use both skills. And last but not least, we have Eldritch Possession, may possess target for 2 turns, requires cooldown. Here we have an attack that targets a single enemy, it costs 70 stamina, that is an extremely high stamina cost, and an extremely high cooldown of 4-turn cooldown, but you do possess the enemy for 2 full turns. Now the cool thing about this skill is that even though it has a high stamina cost, if you ever start the game off with Eldritch Possession, on the next turn you use Eldritch Stamina, and guess what, you're back to full. Or heck, you don't even use Eldritch Stamina there. You do Eldritch Possession, on the next turn you do Outer Impact, and then on the following turn when you have like no stamina left because that's already 98, you can do Eldritch Stamina. The cool thing about this monster is you can do Eldritch Stamina whenever you need to and recover your stamina all the way to full. Now I will say one bad thing about this monster is that he has really bad rotations. Just taking a look at the 3-turn cooldown, a 4-turn cooldown here, a 3-turn cooldown here, another 3-turn cooldown, another 3-turn cooldown, it is really hard to rotate. If you start the game off with a 2-turn Possession, that's a 4-turn cooldown, then Outer Impact, 3-turn cooldown, Unstoppable Ritual, that's a 3-turn cooldown, this would still be at 2, this would be at 3. Even if you do Eldritch Stamina, you won't be able to do anything on the next turn. so that's really rather unfortunate. And thus another reason why you may want to consider Eldritch Fascination. It only has a 2-turn cooldown, there's nothing bad about running that skill if you need to. At the same time though, a counter argument can be made that if you do Eldritch Possession on an enemy monster, they're basically on your team for 2 turns. If you do Outer Impact, you're probably going to kill one of the enemy monsters. If not, they're going to be really close to dying, the possessed monster might kill it. And then if you do Unstoppable Ritual, once again, you're probably going to kill the enemy monster, and if not, they're going to become pretty close to dying. So what skills you should choose for this monster? It really depends. It's hard to say. There are so many viable options. I would say Eldritch Stamina is a must-have skill, as is Outer Impact, as they are extremely powerful. And as for the last skills, it's completely up to you. If you're the kind of person that likes AoEs, well then you can run Sanity Check and Great Sanity Check. And then when it comes to awards, just do whatever becomes to you. Do you want to do the AoEs back to back? Do you want to do Outer Impact, follow it up with an AoE? Or if you run Eldritch Stamina and Outer Impact, you could also run Eldritch Possession. Again, the main drawback to this skill is no initial damage, but the big pro to this skill is a 2-turn possession, so it's basically a 4 against 3 battle. Or I guess you can technically say it's a 4 against 2. Well, no, not really, because they're still on their team. They're just on your team for 2 turns. Like, it's just really hard. I wish this would have dealt some damage, even if it was a little, I wouldn't mind. I wish Great Sanity Check would have been a special base attack, because then it would have been easy to say pick that skill. But seriously, you have different options. You can go with the 2 single target hits, an AoE, and the self skill. You can go with the 2 AoEs, your strong single target hit, and the self skill. Or you can go with the single target hit, the strong one, 70 damage. You can go with Eldritch Possession, 2-turn possession even though it deals no damage, the self skill, and then whatever you want, whether it be the single target hit, whether it be one of the AoEs, or you can go with the single possession. There's so many options. Think, if I had to choose a skill set for this monster for myself personally, I would pick Eldritch Stamina, Outer Impact, Eldritch Possession, and Great Sanity Check. And the reason I would do this is because if I start the game off with Eldritch Possession and I 2-turn possess a monster, I'm hoping he deals enough damage to where I can just do Great Sanity Check to wipe out the whole enemy team, and I don't need Outer Impact. But at least I have Outer Impact there, just for those situations where, hey, there's a main threat, I can't possess him, so I gotta kill him. And again, this skill set is not without its drawback. Look at the cooldowns, 4, 4, 3, 3. If I start off with this, then use this, I still won't be able to use these skills, even after I give myself an extra turn. So there are some downsides, which is why I'm telling everyone you might want to consider a 2 cooldown skill Eldritch Fascination. And as for runes on this monster, well, he is an attacker, so you should give him 2 strength runes and a speed or a team speed rune, depending where you're at in the game. And as far as whether or not this monster can be used on defense, I would say yes, he could definitely be used on defense. If you were to use him on defense, the skill sets, they'd probably be somewhat the same, although it's hard to say how effective he'd be on defense. Like, you'd probably want him to use Outer Impact and probably try to eliminate an enemy monster. On defense, you'd probably want to give him a speed, a strength, and a life. Or maybe just keep him like an attacker build, 2 strength and a speed, and hope you land something strong. Maybe in that case, for defense specifically, you would want Outer Impact, Unstoppable Ritual, and Great Sanity Check. Don't worry about the Eldritch Possession because you never know, the enemy can just bring someone immune to possession, in which case the AI would waste their turn. Eldritch Stamina is great even on defense, just because even if the AI was to use this skill right off the bat, guess what, the next 3 skills to choose from, they're pretty good. It's either going to be a 60 dark based attack, a 45 dark based AoE, or a 70 damage special based attack. So that's what you want. No matter what, you're guaranteed one of these hits if this monster is on defense. Which is why you want to make sure he is really strong on defense. You want to make sure he has at least 1 strength rune, maybe 2 strength runes. And anyways, with that being said, that is going to conclude my analysis on Krugbo. Please let me know what you thought about my analysis, let me know if I missed anything, if I should have included anything. Whatever thoughts are going on through your head, please let me know in the comments below. How do you think this monster compares to other dark monsters, specifically to the attackers, since he is more along the lines of an attacker? And what do you think about his 2-turn possession? Isn't it unfortunate that it deals no damage? Like, you're missing out on the runes. Can you imagine giving him 2 high level runes, 2 8 runes, 9, 10 runes, 2-turn possession, but sorry, you take no damage. Do you like it? Do you not like it? Is it worth running? I imagine most people will say yes, but I don't know, maybe someone has a different thought. So like I said earlier, whatever's going on through your head, please let me know in the comments below. Actually, before I go, because I did think of something right after finishing this analysis, there is another potential skill set you can do, and even though he has a high power, 3575, highest for dark monsters, you could also run this monster as a secondary supportive monster. You can give him all team speed, you know, he can be that legendary monster that supplements your main deny, and then he just ends off with being able to do something. You can also give him 2 speed and a team speed, specifically to counter general Thetis, and that could also definitely work. So the idea of giving this monster speed and team speed and not utilizing his power is to run skills like Eldritch Fascination, which is a single possession, Eldritch Stamina, which is a counter to general Thetis, and Eldritch Possession, which deals no damage. Because you have this skill that deals no damage, Eldritch Stamina that deals no damage, and Eldritch Fascination which deals 35 damage, you don't really care about power. in which case you also run great sanity checks just for the AoE nightmares. But going back to what appears to be an odd rune set for this monster, the whole idea would be, like I mentioned earlier, if your General Thetis goes first and they immobilize you, you can't do anything, you're out of stamina, your main deny has to recharge, hopefully it can go to Krugbo, and if you're running 2 speed runes, it probably will go to Krugbo, and then with that team speed that'll help him out even more, in which case you do Eldritch Possession and possess the enemy attacker. Possess that attacker, get him on your side, whichever monster has the most strength runes. Hopefully he attacks Thetis, he attacks his teammate, hopefully he doesn't attack himself since he's on your team for 2 turns. If he can immobilize or take out the treachery monster on the enemy team, that's awesome. If not, that's cool too, because the enemy Thetis, it can't do anything except maybe its ultimate attack. When it's Krugbo's turn again, you can do Eldritch Fascination on the treachery monster if it didn't die. So now you have the enemy attacker on your team, the 3rd monster on your team, Thetis just recharged so she has 70 stamina, so that could also work wonders. And you can also do an AoE Nightmares whenever you want to, so that's another potential skill set that could work if you're not concerned with using this monster for offense, which personally, the more and more I think about it, I think there's better attackers out there. Barbatos, of course, is like the main dark attacker, undisputably the strongest dark attacker, but I don't know, let me know what you guys think about this different rune set and skill set build. With that being said, I'm RRabbits, and like always, remember to dream big and pursue your passions.